Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas on Tuesday, October the 21st. And welcome to our commentary. Well, I woke up today with car problems. So by the time I got to the mechanic and got everything at least squared away, the car won't be ready for a couple of days. It's nothing fatal, but they have to order the parts and all that kind of stuff. But it was nevertheless interesting, and so I'm kind of getting my day back together. And I tell you, I have an older car, which by choice I do, because I don't want to buy a new one. I don't want to, have to put out money and buy a new one. So I have an older car, but of course, sometimes when there's a problem, they have to order parts because the parts are not readily available as would be a newer car. But anyway, it worked out well, and I should have my new car on Wednesday afternoon, so everything will be back to normal. But it's just funny how dependent you become on your car, and then when it breaks down, you're like, wow, what do I do now? What do I do now? But anyway, everything was worked out, and we're back. We'll be back on the road tomorrow with our not our new car, but our used car having been repaired. So, if I can explain it that way. A couple of interesting things. Obviously, the shutdown is going on day number 21. I have no idea when this is going to end. I really didn't think it would go this long. Initially, I thought it would go a few days, and then everybody would sort of realize that this is not a very productive way to govern. But it seems to be going on. I think, excuse me, both sides, sorry about that, both sides are calculating that this is good for them. And that's why, they're extending it. But I'm not sure that it is good for anybody. And at the moment, I think both sides are losing. But I think the Democrats are losing more. And let me tell you why. Because they have invested more in this. They've invested more in shutting down the government. Whenever you're the one who shuts down the government, you've invested a lot more in your decision. So I don't know how much longer the Democrats are going to be able to stay together. All kinds of rumors that there's dissent inside the Democrat Party. Again, I don't know if that's true or not true, but it looks to me now that this may go on for a few more weeks. Everybody thought, well, they'll get back together after this march on Saturday, but that does not appear to be happening. Again, both sides are holding out, and the Democrats are the ones who have to take the first step because they're the ones who shut down the government. The excuse that they're bringing up is, of course, Obamacare. They're saying, well, we got to do something about Obamacare. Well, President Trump has never, and the Republicans have never said no to negotiating Obamacare. I mean, they've never said no to negotiating on the subsidies. And it's the Democrats who've brought in the Obamacare subsidies into the debate now. But it was never part of their original reason for shutting down the government. Now they're trying to use Obamacare as the excuse to keep on fighting for the people, as they like to say. The fact is, and this is true, on November 1st or December 1st, there's going to be an increase in premiums, or at least an elimination of subsidies. So yes, some people who depend on Obamacare, some people who are getting subsidies to buy Obamacare, are going to find out that their bill went up significantly. And, I like to help those people. But you can't touch them. You can't do anything until the government is reopened. And for the time being, it's the Republicans who are saying, hey, we're willing to negotiate. It's the Democrats who are saying, no, we're not going to negotiate. We want to do it our way. Well, I think that that's not a good way to negotiate. So I don't know where it's going to end up. I don't like it when we shut down the government. I think it's a stupid thing to do. But with respect to Obamacare, we have to do something very serious about Obamacare because it's not working. And simply creating more subsidies or putting in more money for more subsidies I don't think that's going to fix anything. I just don't see that fixing anything. I just think that all that's going to do is put more money into a bad program. So what I like to see President Trump and the Republicans do is say, look, we're not going to, we're going to subsidize it maybe for another 6 months. But after that, we have to come up with a new program. We have to have something completely different that is going to work better. Again, whatever we come up with has to guarantee pre-existing conditions. I'm okay with that. Provides a window for, let's say, lower income people to be able to get private health insurance. I'm okay with that. And maybe some subsidies for certain groups. And the best way to help people who don't have their own insurance at work or who do not have the ability to buy their own insurance through their work, let's say like self-employed people and all that kind of stuff. The best way I think to do it is through tax credits. Just give them a tax credit so that they can buy their own insurance. I think that's the best way to do it, through tax credits. So we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it all comes down. But right now, the Democrats are making it all about Obamacare. And I never thought that was the reason they wanted to shut down the government in the first place. I thought it was over a couple of provisions on the big, beautiful bill that they were angry about. So who knows? It may change tomorrow. But it's not a good idea when government shuts down. I just don't think it's a good look. And I don't think they're serving the American people when you shut down the government. Well, let's talk a little bit about Bolivia and what is going on down there. We're going to have a guest on Bolivia on Thursday. We're going to be talking about the situation going on in Bolivia, where a right center candidate, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Paz, P-A-Z, has just been elected. And one of the first things he said was, we want better relations with the United States. And he's aligning himself with the policies of the United States with respect to the narcos and so on. So that's a great positive sign for Bolivia. We saw something similar in Paraguay, which is a country right next to it. We do have a couple of problems in Colombia and in Venezuela. And the problems there are, well, in Venezuela, everybody knows what the problem is. Maduro stole the election. And, that simply cannot stand. And in Colombia, the problem is the president of Colombia, who is knee-deep with the narcos. So those are going to be two huge problems that we're going to have to address. I'm not saying militarily, but we should start maybe sanctioning Colombia as much as we can. I believe we are doing it through tariffs. And I think we got to make it very clear to those countries that, look, if you're going to be doing business with narcos, you're not going to be doing business with the United States, and to begin squeezing them as much as possible. And I think it'll work. I believe it'll work. But, again, we'll have to see how everything develops. But we're putting a lot of troops and a lot of naval equipment around Venezuela. I don't believe there's going to be an invasion of Venezuela. I think that's just intended to send a message to the Maduro government that we are serious. We could invade Venezuela if we want to, but I think we're hoping that he gets the message and, takes a plane out and maybe goes to Cuba or wherever he can get asylum and get out of the country and let the duly elected president, Mr. Gonzalez, take over the country as soon as possible. So that, I believe, could be happening. That could be happening sooner than later, because there's a lot of discontent in Venezuela with this particular government of Mr. Maduro, the man who stole the elections. That's as much as I can tell you. Fascinating thing coming out of Japan. They have a new prime minister, and I'm going to have to look up, make sure I pronounce the lady's name correctly. Takaichi is the name of the lady, and she is now the prime minister of Japan. I believe she is the first woman prime minister of Japan. So congratulations to the new prime minister of Japan. She is a very interesting character by everything you're seeing. She is a disciple of Margaret Thatcher, the lady from the UK that we came to love so much years ago. She's tough on immigration. She believes that immigration policies are not, or that open immigration is not good for Japan, and she's going to tighten up on that particular issue. But The biggest problem that and she wants to have a tough policy on China, which is a good thing as well. But I never really thought that immigration was a problem in Japan. I never really thought that was a problem. What I kept reading about everywhere is that Japan had a reproduction problem, meaning they were not getting married and having babies in sufficient numbers. That's what I had always read, that their number one problem was. They're declining in population. South Korea has the same problem. So maybe they will address that. Maybe they'll address that issue. But they got to start reproducing in Japan, because they're not right now. They're not right now, and there's always going to be economic consequences when your population gets older, and you have less and less young people to work. Eventually, that's going to catch up with your country. Well, on this day in history, I'm going to leave you with a little memory. I remember this one. 1975, so that would be 50 years ago, Game 6 of the World Series. It was one, they call it the greatest World Series game ever, and I believe it. Now, that's kind of a subjective thing, because, I haven't seen every World Series game. I mean, there were a bunch of games before I was born, so how can I say that this is the greatest? But, a lot of people call it the greatest. The game went back and forth. It was between the Red Sox and the Reds. And in the seventh inning, the Reds were leading 6-3, and they looked in control and ready to win the series, because they were leading the series 3-2. This was Game 6. And then the Red Sox tied it. Then it went into extra innings, and it was just back and forth, threats on both sides, and they just couldn't score. And then in the bottom of the 12th inning, Carlton Fisk hit that famous home run that hit the foul pole and was obviously a fair ball. And, the whole stadium went nuts, and the whole country went nuts, because I think most of the country stayed up to watch that home run. I think the home run came after midnight. So, I mean, I was up after midnight watching it, and I'm sure millions of other people were too. But anyway, it was the greatest game ever. As far as I'm concerned, the greatest World Series game ever. Carlton Fisk winning the game in the bottom of the 12th. And what a memory. But my gosh, I'm getting older, because it was 50 years ago tonight, that game was played in Fenway Park in Boston. And right after Carlton Fisk hit the home run, he ran the bases, and the crowd didn't want to go home. They were so excited. He came out, he waved at the crowd. The crowd did not want to go home. They were so excited. So the organist started playing, I think they were playing Hallelujah, Hallelujah, whatever. They were playing that. And the crowd did not want to go home. They were that excited about being there that night with that home run. So I was watching it on TV, and I couldn't get to sleep after that. I remember staying up all night because I couldn't get to sleep. I was so excited. And the next morning, of course, when the alarm goes off at 6, then you realize that you should have gone to sleep earlier. But I just couldn't get to sleep. I mean, it was just so exciting, that game. And it was so exciting to watch it. And I just couldn't get to sleep. And as I understand, much of New England couldn't get to sleep either. The whole Northeast was watching the game. The whole country, that huge audience, a huge television audience for that game. And of course, the next game, Game 7, the Reds won that game 4-3, and they went on to be the World Series champs. But what a great night 50 years ago. And I guess I say 50 years ago, it just tells you how old we're getting when you can remember and enjoy something that far back. Thank you for listening. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.